The chandelier above me glittered like a galaxy of captured stars, casting fractured light across the ballroom of our family's Napa Valley estate. The air was thick with the scent of vintage wine and Chanel No. 5, the kind of opulence that screams old money and older grudges. I stood at the edge of the crowd, my champagne flute trembling in my hand, the bubbles long gone flat. Around me, San Francisco's elite mingled tech moguls, political insiders, and my family, the Harpers, who'd built a real estate empire over 4 decades only to watch it teeter on the brink of ruin. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration, a gala to honor Harper Properties' 40th anniversary. Instead, it felt like a guillotine waiting to drop. I'm Eleanor Harper, 29, a corporate lawyer who clawed her way to senior partner at one of San Francisco's top firms. I've negotiated mergers worth billions, faced down boardrooms of stone-faced executives, and never blinked. But standing here in the heart of my family's legacy, I felt like a child again, small, exposed, and braced for the inevitable blame. For as long as I can remember, I've been the scapegoat for every Harper family failure: a broken vase at 6, my brother Nathan's flunked exams, my father's public scandals. Somehow it was always my fault. Tonight, I'd hoped for a truce, a moment to prove I wasn't the villain they'd cast me as. I was wrong. The string quartet's melody faltered as my father, Charles Harper, took the stage. His silver hair gleamed under the spotlight, his tailored tuxedo masking the exhaustion I'd seen in his eyes lately. He raised a glass, his voice booming with the charisma that had once charmed investors and city planners alike. "To Harper Properties," he began, "a legacy built on vision, grit, and family." The crowd applauded, but I noticed the tightness in his smile, the way his gaze avoided mine. My mother, Vivian, stood beside him, her emerald gown catching the light, her expression unreadable. My brother Nathan and sister Claire flanked them, picture perfect in their designer outfits, but their eyes were daggers aimed at me. I shifted uncomfortably in my black silk gown, the one I'd chosen to blend in, not stand out. My promotion to senior partner had come just weeks ago, a career pinnacle that should have been my shield tonight. Instead, it was ammunition. I'd overheard Claire whispering to a cousin earlier, "Eleanor thinks she's too good for us now, with her fancy law firm." Nathan had smirked, adding, "She's always been a traitor to the family business." The words stung, but I had learned to swallow the hurt, to keep my head high. I'd spent my life trying to prove my worth to them. Straight A's, Yale Law School, a scholarship they never acknowledged, yet here I was, still the outcast. The speech ended, and the crowd surged toward the open bar. I exhaled, hoping to slip away unnoticed, but Nathan's hand clamped onto my arm. "Not so fast, sis," he hissed, his breath sharp with whiskey. "We need to talk. Now." Before I could protest, he steered me toward the estate's library, a mahogany-paneled sanctuary lined with first editions and secrets. Claire followed, her heels clicking like a countdown. My parents were already inside, their faces grim. The door slammed shut, and the room felt like a courtroom, with me on trial. "Eleanor," my father began, his voice low and dangerous, "you've gone too far this time." I blinked, confusion warring with dread. "What are you talking about?" My voice was steady, but my heart pounded. Vivian stepped forward, her diamond necklace glinting like a blade. "Don't play innocent. Harper Properties is crumbling, and it's because of you." The accusation hit like a slap. I'd spent months offering pro bono legal work to save their sinking empire, drafting contracts, restructuring deals, anything to keep it afloat. I'd uncovered $2,500,000, 0 cents in hidden debts, fraudulent loans, and offshore accounts tied to my father's reckless schemes. I'd begged him to sell underperforming assets, to face the truth. He'd refused, clinging to the myth of our family's untouchable legacy. "Me?" I said, incredulity creeping into my tone. "I've been trying to save the business while you—" I stopped, the word gambling caught in my throat. My father's addiction was the family's dirtiest secret, one I'd only recently confirmed. Nathan's eyes narrowed. "Well, what, Eleanor? While Dad tried to keep us afloat? You're the one who pushed that $1,800,000 0 cents loan, tying his hands with your ridiculous condition." I shook my head, stunned. I co-signed that loan to help, with clauses to protect us all. You know that. Claire scoffed, tossing her blonde hair. Protect yourself, you mean? Your precious law license, your perfect career. You've always been selfish. The room spun. I clutched the edge of a leather armchair, my knuckles white. Selfish? I've given everything to this family. My time, my expertise, my sanity. And for what? To be blamed for your mistakes? My voice rose, years of suppressed anger breaking free. Vivian's mantra echoed in my mind. Why must you always ruin everything, Eleanor? It had started when I was 6, when Nathan trashed our mother's prized art collection and pointed the finger at me. I'd stood there, a trembling kindergartner, as my parents believed him without question. The pattern never stopped. Nathan's failed exams, Claire's tabloid scandals, my father's drunken outbursts at charity events. Somehow, it was always my fault. Charles slammed his fist on the desk, the sound like a gunshot. Enough! Your meddling has driven away our investors, alienated our clients, and buried us in debt. You think your Yale degree makes you better than us? You've destroyed our legacy. His words were a physical blow, stealing my breath. The library door creaked open, and I realized the crowd outside had grown quiet, eavesdropping on our implode. My Aunt Margaret, my grandfather, even distant cousins, they were all there, their faces a gallery of judgment. She's always been trouble, Margaret muttered. Ungrateful, another voice added. I looked to my mother, desperate for an ally. Mom, please. Her eyes met mine, cold and distant, then dropped to the floor. You should go, Eleanor, she said softly. The betrayal was a knife to the heart. Nathan smirked, Claire crossed her arms, and my father pointed to the door. You've destroyed us, he roared. Leave and never return. The words echoed, final and absolute. I wanted to scream, to fight, to make them see the truth, but the weight of their collective blame crushed me. With every eye on me, I straightened my spine, set my champagne flute on the desk, and walked out. The ballroom was a blur of faces, curious, pitying, condemning. I pushed through, my heels sinking into the plush carpet, my pulse a war drum. Outside, the Napa Valley night was cool, the stars indifferent. I fumbled for my car keys, tears burning my eyes, and drove away from the estate that had never felt like home. The highway stretched before me, a ribbon of asphalt leading nowhere and everywhere. By the time I reached my San Francisco apartment, my hands were shaking so badly I dropped my keys 3 times. Inside, I collapsed onto the couch, the silence deafening. My phone buzzed. Nathan, Claire, even my mother. But I couldn't answer. Not now, not ever. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I packed a single suitcase, changed my phone number, and booked a one-way ticket to Seattle. I left a letter on my kitchen counter, addressed to no one. I'm done being your scapegoat. Don't look for me. San Francisco, with its glittering skyline and suffocating expectations, was my past. Seattle, with its rain-soaked streets and promise of anonymity, was my future. But as I boarded the plane, my phone, still active for a few more hours, lit up with notifications. 72 missed calls, 38 voicemails, 112 texts. The Harpers weren't letting go without a fight. And something told me the worst was yet to come. The Napa Valley estate vanished in my rearview mirror, but its shadow clung to me like damp fog. I drove through the night, the radio off, the hum of the engine my only companion. My mind replayed the gala in brutal detail, the chandelier's mocking glow, my father's venomous words, my mother's silence. I'd spent 29 years trying to be the perfect daughter, the perfect sister, only to be cast out like a traitor. The injustice burned, but beneath it, a flicker of something else stirred. Relief? Freedom? I couldn't name it yet. San Francisco's skyline loomed as I crossed the Bay Bridge, its lights a cruel reminder of the life I was leaving behind. My apartment in Russian Hill was a sanctuary of sleek furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows, but it felt like a stage set now, props for a role I no longer played. I dropped my keys on the counter, kicked off my heels, and sank onto the couch. My phone buzzed incessantly, each notification a needle in my skin. Nathan, you think you can just walk away? Claire, you're pathetic, Eleanor, my mother. Please call. We need to talk. I powered it off, the silence both terrifying and liberating. I poured a glass of bourbon, the amber liquid catching the city lights. My reflection in the window stared back. Dark hair pulled into a tight chignon, green eyes haunted but resolute. I was Eleanor Harper, senior partner at Caldwell and Locke, a woman who'd faced down corporate titans and won. Yet my family had reduced me to nothing with a few well-aimed words. The bourbon burned my throat, grounding me. I couldn't stay here, not in this city where every street corner held a memory of their blame. The decision came fast, like a storm breaking. Seattle. I'd been offered a transfer to our firm's new office there months ago, a chance to lead high-stakes mergers in a city that didn't know the Harper name. I'd declined then, still tethered to the hope of family approval. Now, that hope was ash. I opened my laptop, emailed my boss, Rebecca Lang, and accepted the transfer, effective immediately. I requested a week's leave to handle personal matters, a vague truth that spared me from explaining the wreckage of my life. Packing was surgical. I filled one suitcase with essentials: clothes, my Yale diploma, a photo of my best friends, Sophie and Liam, from graduation. Everything else, the designer dresses and curated decor, felt like relics of a person I no longer recognized. I called my landlord, paid the penalty to break my lease, and arranged to sell my furniture to a consignment shop. The final act was the hardest, changing my phone number. It meant severing the last thread to my family, to the life I'd known. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen, then completed the process. The confirmation text felt like a death certificate. I wrote the letter last, my handwriting unsteady but deliberate. I've spent my life trying to prove I'm not the villain you think I am. I'm done. Don't look for me. I sealed it in an envelope, no address, no recipient. It was, for me, a declaration of independence. I left it on the counter, a ghost to haunt the apartment after I was gone. At dawn, I drove to the airport, my car loaded with the fragments of my new life. The flight to Seattle was turbulent, the plane shuddering through storm clouds, mirroring the chaos in my chest. As we descended, the city emerged, gray, rain-slicked, a blank slate. Seattle's airport was a maze of weary travelers and overpriced coffee. I rented a car and drove to a temporary Airbnb in Belltown, a loft with exposed brick and a view of Puget Sound. Unpacking took minutes. I had so little left. I sat on the edge of the bed, the weight of my choice crashing over me. Had I overreacted? Was cutting them off too extreme? My new phone was silent, a stark contrast to the old one, which I'd left with the carrier to disconnect. I imagined the notifications piling up, anger, guilt trips, maybe even apologies. The thought sent my pulse racing and I slid to the floor, my breath shallow. A panic attack, my first in years, gripped me. For 20 minutes, I fought to breathe, the loft's walls closing in, convinced I'd made a terrible mistake. When it passed, I forced myself to move. I opened my laptop, set up my remote work login, and emailed Rebecca to confirm my arrival. Routine would save me. I walked to a nearby coffee shop, the rain a soft drumbeat on my umbrella. The barista, Maya Torres, had a sleeve of tattoos and a smile that felt like a lifeline. "First time here?" she asked, noticing my struggle with the Wi-Fi. "First time in Seattle," I admitted. "Work transfer, new start." She nodded. No questions, just warmth. "Welcome, Eleanor. Seattle's good for reinvention." Her words, simple but sincere, were my first anchor in this strange city. The next days were a blur of logistics. I searched for a permanent apartment, the competitive market a harsh wake-up call. My savings were solid, but Seattle's rents were brutal. I finally found a one-bedroom in Ballard. Its industrial charm, brick walls, high windows, speaking to the raw, unpolished life I wanted. Moving in with my sparse belongings was a revelation. My San Francisco apartment had been a museum of family expectations, every item chosen to impress them. Here, I stood in an empty space, paralyzed by the freedom to choose for myself. What did I even like? The question was a labyrinth. Therapy helped. I'd been seeing Dr. Lauren Carter for years, first in person, now via video calls. You're not just starting over, she said in our first Seattle session. You're discovering who Eleanor Harper is without the weight of their blame. She suggested small experiments. Try new foods, music, hobbies. I bought spicy Korean tacos, wincing at the heat but loving the boldness. I downloaded jazz albums, the kind Nathan would have mocked as pretentious. I signed up for a rock climbing class, something my father would have called a waste of time. Each choice felt like a rebellion, a brick in the foundation of a new me. But the past wasn't done with me. A week into my new life, I got a call from the phone carrier. They'd retrieved data from my old number before disconnecting it. Would you like to see the activity? The technician asked. I nodded, my mouth dry. The screen showed 72 missed calls, 38 voicemails, 112 texts, all from my family. The earliest were furious. Charles demanding I stop this nonsense, Vivian's voice tight with anger, Nathan calling me a coward, then confusion. Where are you? Your apartment's empty. Claire's texts turned desperate. Dad's in trouble. You need to come back. The most recent from yesterday was a single line from Nathan. You can't hide forever. I listened to the voicemails, each one a twist of the knife. My mother's tone softened over weeks, tearful, pleading for me to call. Charles's final message was subdued, cryptic. Things have escalated. We need your help. Claire's last voicemail chilled me. It's worse than you think, Eleanor. You're part of this, whether you want to be or not. I left the store with printouts of the texts, my hands trembling. Back in my loft, I spread them across the counter, a map of my family's unraveling. References to bank investigations and asset seizures hinted at a scandal, far bigger than I'd imagined. I logged into social media, accounts I'd deactivated but not deleted. My feed was a minefield. Harper Properties had collapsed, its flagship office shuttered. A post from Claire blamed me publicly. Some people abandon their family when it counts, but the comments told a different story. Former employees and family friends called out Charles's gambling, his open secret in elite circles. One anonymous comment stood out. The truth about the loans is worse than you know. My stomach twisted. What truth? What had I missed? The next morning, my work phone rang, a San Francisco number I didn't recognize. Eleanor Harper, I answered, professional instinct kicking in. Claire's voice was sharp, urgent. Do you know how many firms I called to find you? You need to come home. Dad's been arrested. Fraud, money laundering, the works. The bank's asking about that loan you co-signed. No greeting, no apology, just demands. I gripped the phone, my resolve hardening. I'm not coming back, Claire. I didn't create this mess. She laughed, bitter. You're on that loan, Eleanor. You think you can just walk away? We know where you work now. Don't be surprised if your new boss hears some interesting stories. The threat landed like a punch. I hung up, my hands shaking, and went straight to Rebecca's office. I need to tell you something, I said, closing the door. For the next half hour, I laid it all bare. The gala, the loan, my father's arrest, Claire's threat. Rebecca listened, her expression calm but attentive. Thank you for being upfront, she said. Your work is impeccable, Eleanor. No one's going to derail that, especially not a bitter sibling. Her support was a lifeline, but Claire's words echoed. We know where you work now. The Harpers were coming for me, and I wasn't sure I was ready for what came next. The rain in Seattle never stopped, a constant drizzle that mirrored the unease settling in my bones. My Ballard apartment was starting to feel like home, with a secondhand couch and a shelf of thrift store books I actually wanted to read. I'd adopted a rescue cat, a scrappy tabby named Juno, who curled up beside me at night, her purring a small comfort against the nightmares. They came often. Replays of the gala, my father's face twisted with rage, or worse, new scenarios where I was trapped, voiceless, as the family closed in. Work was my anchor. The Seattle office wasn't fully operational yet, so I worked remotely, diving into merger contracts with a focus that bordered on obsession. My colleagues, unaware of my past, treated me as Eleanor Harper, senior partner, not Eleanor Harper, family pariah. But the past had a way of creeping in. One evening, I stayed late at a co-working space, reviewing a client's acquisition deal. The office was empty, the city dark beyond the windows. A crash from the hallway made me jump. I grabbed my phone, heart racing, and crept toward the sound. Papers were scattered across the floor, my laptop gone. A note was pinned to my desk. You can't outrun your family's debts. I called the police, my voice steady despite the panic clawing at me. The officer took my statement, but the security cameras had been disabled, no leads. Could be random, he said, unconvinced. I knew better. The Harper's creditors, or someone tied to my father's schemes, had found me. The next day, I upgraded my apartment's locks and bought a security camera, but the violation lingered. My safe haven wasn't safe anymore. Then came the car incident. I was driving to a climbing gym, the coastal highway curving along Puget Sound, when my brakes failed. The pedals sank uselessly, the car accelerating toward a cliff. I yanked the emergency brake, tires screeching, and stopped inches from the edge. My hands shook as I called a tow truck. The mechanic's verdict was chilling. Someone cut the brake line. Clean job. I filed another police report, but the fear was a living thing now, coiling tighter with each day. The third blow came at a client dinner. I'd been wooing a tech startup CEO, a deal that could cement my place in the Seattle office. We were at a waterfront restaurant, the mood light, when my water glass tasted wrong, bitter, metallic. I set it down, uneasy, and swapped it with an empty one when the CEO wasn't looking. Minutes later, a colleague who'd taken a sip from my original glass collapsed, convulsing. Paramedics rushed her to the hospital. She survived, but tests showed a rare toxin. The police questioned everyone, but I knew. Someone had targeted me, and I'd escaped by pure chance. The pressure at work was mounting too. An anonymous email sent to the firm's partners detailed my involvement in the Harper Properties loan, twisting the truth to paint me as complicit in fraud. The ethics committee launched an investigation, and though Rebecca vouched for me, the scrutiny was a constant weight. A major client, spooked by rumors, threatened to pull their account unless I stepped back. I fought to keep my composure, but the cracks were showing. The final incident pushed me to the edge. I came home one night to find my apartment trashed. Furniture overturned, Juno cowering under the bed. A message was scrawled on the wall in red paint. Pay what's owed, or next time it's you. I grabbed Juno, booked a hotel, and called my lawyer, Olivia Grant, who'd been handling the loan fallout. You need protection, she said. This isn't just family drama anymore. It's organized. She suspected my father's gambling debts had drawn in dangerous players, possibly tied to his offshore accounts. I sat in the hotel, Juno purring in my lap, and tried to piece it together. Who was behind the break-in, the car, the poison, the threats? Was it my family, desperate to drag me back? Or creditors using me to settle Charles's debts? The anonymous social media comment haunted me. The truth about the loans is worse than you know. What had my father hidden, and why was Claire so certain I was part of this? The questions were a maze with no exit, but one thing was clear: I'd escaped the Harpers, but their shadow was longer than I'd imagined. A month later, I met my mother at a Pike Place Market cafe. She'd emailed, asking for a half hour, no expectations. I agreed, Dr. Carter's grounding techniques in my mind. Vivian looked frail, her designer coat hanging loose, her eyes shadowed. You look well, she said, her voice catching. I am, I replied, neutral but firm. Over coffee, she told me Charles had been sentenced. 3 years, mostly probation. The business was gone, their Pacific Heights mansion sold to cover debts. I'm sorry it's been hard, I said, meaning it. She studied me, surprised. You are, aren't you? Even after everything? She admitted fault. First, I blamed you because it was easier than facing your father's lies. I failed you, Eleanor. It wasn't an apology, but it was close. I nodded, unsure how to respond. We parted with a tentative plan for occasional calls, a fragile bridge to something new. But my father's call, weeks later, was a different story. He pitched a new venture, expecting me to return and redeem the Harper name. When I refused, he sneered, "Still holding grudges, I see." I held my ground, Dr. Carter's words my shield. Forgiveness doesn't mean re entering harm. Nathan and Claire remained distant, their texts a mix of anger and manipulation, but a new connection gave me purpose. My friend Maya introduced me to her cousin, Ethan, trapped in a toxic roommate dynamic that mirrored my family's scapegoating. Over coffee, I shared my story, offering strategies I'd learned the hard way. You deserve relationships that lift you up, I told him. He listened, eyes wide, and though he wasn't ready to act, I saw a spark of hope. Helping him felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. A year after the gala, I stood on the Seattle waterfront, watching ferries glide across the Sound. My apartment was mine now, filled with jazz records, climbing gear, and Juno's toys. My circle had grown. Maya, Evelyn, Ethan, colleagues who saw me for me. The legal fallout from the loan was manageable, thanks to Olivia's work. The threats had stopped, at least for now, though I kept my security system armed. I'd found peace, not in erasing the past, but in choosing my future. My phone buzzed. A text from Vivian. Thinking of you. Hope you're okay. I smiled, typing back, I am, thanks. The water shimmered, reflecting a life I'd built from the ashes of the one I'd left. The Harper's shadow lingered, but it no longer defined me. I was Eleanor Harper, and for the first time, that was enough. The rain in Seattle was relentless, a gray curtain that turned the city into a labyrinth of reflections. I stood at my Ballard apartment's window, Juno purring at my feet, watching the streetlights blur into halos. It had been 3 weeks since I'd fled San Francisco, 3 weeks since the Napa Valley Gala, where my family branded me a traitor and cast me out. The memory of my father's voice, "You've bankrupted us and shamed our name. Get out," was a splinter in my mind, sharp and unyielding. I'd thought Seattle would be my salvation, a clean break from the Harper legacy. But the 72 missed calls, 38 voicemails, and 112 texts piling up on my old phone told a different story. The Harpers weren't done with me, and neither were the shadows they'd unleashed. I'm Eleanor Harper, 29, a corporate lawyer who traded San Francisco's glittering elite for Seattle's gritty reinvention. I'd clawed my way to senior partner at Caldwell and Locke, only to have my family's real estate empire, Harper Properties, collapse under my father Charles's fraud and gambling addiction. I'd co-signed a $1,800,000 0 cents loan to save them, only to discover he'd siphoned $900,000 0 cents for his vices. Now I was rebuilding in a city that didn't know my name, but the past was a hunter, and I was its prey. The first sign of trouble came a week ago when my laptop, loaded with Harper Properties' sensitive data, was stolen from a co-working space. The note left behind, "You can't outrun your family's debts," was a warning I couldn't ignore. Then my brakes failed on a coastal highway, nearly sending me into the Pacific. The mechanic confirmed sabotage, a clean cut to the line. Last night, my apartment was trashed, furniture splintered, and a message scrawled in red paint. "Pay what's owed, or next time, it's you." I'd moved to a hotel with Juno, my one-eyed tabby, but sleep was a stranger. Every creak in the hallway, every shadow beyond the curtains was a threat. I sipped coffee, bitter and cold, and opened my laptop to check the news. Harper Properties' collapse was front-page fodder in San Francisco. Headlines screamed of Charles's arrest for fraud and money laundering, tied to $2,500,000 0 cents in hidden debts and offshore accounts. Claire's social media posts painted me as the villain. Some sister abandoning us when we needed her most, but the comment sections were a battlefield. Ex-employees exposing Charles's gambling as an open secret for years. One anonymous post chilled me. "The loans hide more than you think. Ask about the Cayman accounts. What did that mean? Had I co-signed for something worse than I knew? My work phone buzzed. A Seattle number. Eleanor Harper, I answered, bracing myself. It was Maya Torres, the barista who'd become my first friend here. Hey, you okay? You didn't show at the coffee shop this morning. Her concern was a lifeline, but I hesitated. Maya didn't know the full story. Nobody did, except my boss, Rebecca Lang, and my therapist, Dr. Lauren Carter. Rough night, I said, forcing a smile into my voice. I'll swing by tomorrow. She paused, then lowered her voice. There was a guy here asking about you, suit, creepy vibe. Said he was a family friend. I didn't tell him anything. My stomach dropped. What did he look like? I asked, gripping the phone. Tall, maybe 40, scar on his left cheek. Looked like he belonged in a mob movie. I thanked her, my mind racing. A creditor? A hired thug. Whoever he was, he'd found me. I called my lawyer, Olivia Grant, who'd been untangling the loan mess. Eleanor, this is bigger than we thought, she said, her voice tight. The bank's investigating the loan you co-signed. They've flagged transactions to a Cayman Islands account, and your father's claiming you authorized them. My blood ran cold. That's a lie, I snapped. He forged my signature? Olivia sighed. Possibly. But there's more. The feds are looking into ties to a syndicate. Loan sharks, maybe worse. Your father's debts weren't just to casinos. The pieces clicked. The break-in, the sabotaged car, the home invasion. These weren't random. Someone wanted me silenced. Or worse. I hung up, my hands trembling, and checked my hotel room's locks for the third time. Juno mewed, sensing my fear. I needed answers, but every step deeper into the Harper mess felt like walking into a trap. I opened the printouts of my family's texts, spread across the desk like evidence in a trial. Nathan's latest. Dad's in jail because of you. Fix this or I'll make sure everyone knows what you did. Claire's. You think you're free. You're still a Harper, and you owe us. My mother's. Softer but no less manipulative. I'm worried about you, Eleanor. Please come home. The voicemails were worse, Claire's voice cracking with desperation. The bank's seizing everything. Dad's case goes to court next week. You're our only shot. I deleted them, but the words lingered, pulling me back to that Napa Valley ballroom where I'd been ambushed. The gala replayed in my nightmares, relatives circling like vultures, accusing me of tanking Harper Properties with reckless legal advice. Charles had lied, claiming I'd forged loan documents, risking my law license. Claire screamed that my Yale degree ruined our brand, ignoring how my contracts had boosted online revenue. Nathan said my loan conditions paralyzed our father, conveniently forgetting his fraud. The worst was the poisoned drink. I'd swapped glasses with a cousin, Amelia, who collapsed, convulsing, exposing a plot I still couldn't explain. Was it meant for me? Or someone else? The question gnawed at me, a loose thread in a tapestry of betrayal. I needed to focus. Work was my lifeline, but even that was slipping. The Seattle office had delayed my start date, citing concerns about my San Francisco exit. Rumors, fueled by an anonymous email to my firm, had sparked an ethics investigation. The email detailed my loan involvement, twisting it to suggest I'd colluded with Charles. Rebecca had my back, but the partners were skeptical, my partnership status hanging by a thread. Yesterday, a major client, a tech mogul named Derek Voss, recognized me from the Harper scandal. I don't work with people tied to fraud, he'd said, threatening to pull a $50 million 0 cents contract. I'd spent hours salvaging the deal, but the pressure was a vice around my chest. A knock at the hotel door jolted me. My heart leapt, Juno hissing from the bed. Who is it? I called, grabbing a heavy lamp as a makeshift weapon. Room service, a muffled voice replied. I hadn't ordered anything. I crept to the peephole, my pulse hammering. A man in a hotel uniform stood there, but his posture was wrong. Too tense, too alert. I backed away, dialing 911 on my work phone. There's someone suspicious outside my room, I whispered to the operator. Hotel Monaco, room 412. The knocking stopped, replaced by the sound of retreating footsteps. When the police arrived, the man was gone. No trace on the security footage. Could have been a mistake, the officer said, but his eyes said otherwise. I couldn't stay here. I checked out, booked an Airbnb under a fake name, and moved Juno to a pet sitter Maya recommended. The new place was a Capitol Hill studio, cramped but anonymous. I installed a deadbolt and a cheap security camera, but the fear followed me. That night, I dreamed of the gala again, only this time the ballroom was empty, except for a figure in the shadows. A man with a scar on his cheek, holding a glass of poisoned wine. I woke gasping, the clock glowing 3:17. IMM. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford. The next morning, I met Olivia at a diner near Pike Place Market. She slid a folder across the table, her face grim. These are the bank's records on the Cayman transactions, she said. Your signature's on them, but the timestamps don't add up. You were in court when 2 of these were filed. I flipped through the documents, my anger flaring. Charles had forged my name, tying me to his syndicate dealings. What's the worst-case scenario? I asked, dreading the answer. Olivia leaned forward. If the feds think you're complicit, you could face charges. And the creditors? They don't care about guilt. They want the $900,000 0 cents Charles owes, and they think you're their payday. I swallowed hard, the diner's chatter fading to a hum. What do I do? Olivia's eyes softened. We build a case proving you were misled. I've got a forensic accountant digging into the accounts. But you need to stay safe. These people don't play games. Her words echoed the note from my trashed apartment. Pay what's owed, or next time it's you. I nodded, but the weight of it all, creditors, forged documents, my family's lies, was crushing me. Back at the studio, I checked my security camera's app. The feed showed a man lingering outside my building an hour ago, his face obscured by a hood. I froze, zooming in. The scar on his cheek was unmistakable. Maya's family friend. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You can't hide, Eleanor. We know where you are. I dropped the phone, my breath shallow. This wasn't just about money. Someone wanted me erased. I called Rebecca, my voice shaking. I need to take a leave of absence, I said, explaining the threats without mentioning the syndicate. She was silent for a moment, then said, Your safety comes first. But the partners are restless. The Voss contract's on the line, and the ethics probe isn't helping. Come back when you're ready, but don't wait too long. Her support was a lifeline, but the subtext was clear. My career was at risk. Dr. Carter's session that afternoon was a lifeline of a different kind. Via video call, she guided me through breathing exercises, her voice steady. You're not just running from them, she said. You're running toward yourself. What does Eleanor want, not the Harpers? The question cracked something open. Safety, I whispered. And peace? She nodded. Then every choice you make, every boundary is a step toward that. You're stronger than you know. Her words carried me through the next days, but the threats didn't stop. I was walking to the coffee shop when a black SUV swerved toward me, forcing me to dive into an alley. The driver didn't stop, but I caught a glimpse of that scarred face. My heart pounded as I dialed Olivia, who urged me to file a restraining order, but without a name, it was useless. I bought a burner phone, keeping my work line for emergencies. Maya noticed my tension at the coffee shop, slipping me a note. If you need to talk, I'm here. I wanted to confide in her, but the risk was too high. Then came the email that broke me. It was from Nathan, forwarded through my firm's server, bypassing my blocked contacts. You think you're free? Dad's facing 20 years because of you. The feds have your name, and I've got proof you knew about the Cayman accounts. Come back, or I send it to your boss. Attached was a scanned document, a loan authorization with my signature, dated 6 months ago. I hadn't signed it. The forgery was flawless, and the implication was devastating. Nathan was threatening to frame me, to destroy my career and freedom. I forwarded it to Olivia, who confirmed the document was part of the Fed's investigation. We can fight this, she said. But Nathan's playing dirty. He's either desperate or protecting someone. The question burned. Why was Nathan pushing so hard? Was it revenge for my leaving, or was he hiding his own role in Charles's schemes? The anonymous social media comment flashed in my mind. The loans hide more than you think. Was Nathan involved in the Cayman accounts? The pressure was suffocating, but I refused to break. I met Maya's cousin, Ethan, at a quiet cafe, his story of being scapegoated by toxic roommates mirroring my own. They make me feel like everything's my fault, he said, his voice small. I shared my journey, careful with details, but honest about the pain. You deserve better, I told him. Real friends don't tear you down. His eyes lit up, a spark of hope. Helping him felt like redemption, a reminder I could still make a difference. The climax came on a stormy night, the rain hammering my studio's windows. I was reviewing Olivia's latest findings when the power cut out, plunging me into darkness. My security camera's app pinged, a figure at my door, jimmying the lock. I grabbed a kitchen knife, my heart in my throat, and hid in the closet. The door creaked open, footsteps heavy on the hardwood. Eleanor, a gravelly voice called. We need to talk. It was the scarred man. I held my breath, the knife trembling in my hand as he rummaged through my desk. My burner phone was in my pocket, but a call to 911 would give me away. Then, a miracle. Sirens wailed outside, blue lights flashing through the windows. The man cursed and fled, his boots thudding down the stairs. I waited, frozen, until the police knocked. A neighbor had reported a suspicious figure, and the scarred man had vanished into the night. The officers found a business card he'd dropped. Viktor Morozov, private consultant. Olivia ran the name. Morozov was a known fixer for a West Coast syndicate tied to Charles's loan sharks. He's not after you for money, she said. He's cleaning up loose ends. You know too much.